What if the collapse has already begun? Not when things break, not when systems fail, but much earlier, at a moment you would never notice. Because the most dangerous point in any system is not when it collapses. It's when it becomes impossible to stop it. Rome didn't announce its end, it just continued. Until it couldn't. And here is what no historian will tell you. The most dangerous moment in any system is not when it breaks. It's the moment before. The moment that looks exactly like stability, but is already irreversible. Welcome to History AI. We don't talk about history, we decode it. Right now, everything works. Your phone responds instantly. Money moves across the world in seconds. Information travels faster than thought. Everything feels stable, predictable, safe. But that feeling is exactly what every civilization had. Right before it fell. Not Rome, not Greece, not the empires you studied in school. We mean right now, the system you are living inside, today. Now let's slow down. Because Rome didn't collapse overnight. It didn't happen in a single moment. From the outside, it looked strong, organized, unbreakable. But underneath, something had already changed. The system had crossed a line, not visible, not obvious, but irreversible. A system doesn't need to break to be doomed. It only needs to reach a point where recovery stops being possible, where every solution creates new instability, where every fix pushes the system further off balance, where control slowly turns into reaction. That's the moment. Everything changes. Not collapse, but inevitability. Now imagine this in the modern world. Because today's systems are not just large, they are fully interconnected. Global finance, energy networks, supply chains, digital infrastructure. Everything depends on everything else, which means nothing fails alone. Think about 2008. One bank collapsed. Not a war, not a revolution. One institution filed for bankruptcy on a Monday morning, and within days, millions of people lost their savings. Factories closed. Families lost their homes. Entire economies went into free fall. Not because the world ended, but because everything was connected to everything else, and nobody had seen the pressure building until it was too late to stop it. In a system like this, failure is never isolated, it spreads. A disruption becomes a chain reaction. One delay triggers another. One failure amplifies the next, until the system stops reacting to the outside and starts reacting to itself. That's when instability accelerates. Now imagine something observing this, not reacting, not guessing, but understanding, tracking every signal, every dependency, every hidden weakness. Artificial intelligence, because AI doesn't just see what happens, it detects what is building. Invisible patterns, silent pressure, critical thresholds. And those patterns reveal something unsettling. Collapse doesn't begin with failure, it begins with imbalance. A system pushed slightly beyond what it can handle. Not enough to break, but enough to change everything. Because once that threshold is crossed, the system doesn't return to stability. It adapts into instability. And once that happens, there is no slowing down, no correction, no way back. Because the system is no longer stabilizing itself. It's amplifying its own instability. Now imagine living inside that system. Everything still works, nothing seems wrong. But underneath, pressure is increasing, not suddenly, but constantly. Signals you don't see, changes you don't feel. Until one moment, everything shifts. Think about 2021, Texas. A winter storm hits the power grid. Not a war, not a catastrophe, a weather event. And within 48 hours, 4 million homes have no electricity. People freeze to death in their own homes in one of the richest states in the world, not because the system broke overnight, but because the pressure had been building for years, and nobody crossed the threshold back. And when it finally collapsed, it didn't feel like a process. It felt like a break. Sudden, violent, uncontrollable. But the truth is, the collapse didn't start there. It only became visible there. And this is the fundamental rule of complex systems. Growth creates complexity. Complexity creates dependence. Dependence creates fragility. And fragility creates inevitability. Now, think about this. For the first time in history, we can actually see these patterns. We can detect instability. We can measure pressure. We can predict collapse. But here's the part no one talks about. Seeing the collapse does not mean you can stop it. Because once a system reaches a certain point, it doesn't need a cause anymore. It becomes self-driven. It collapses because of what it has become. So the question is no longer, will systems collapse? But this, are they already past the point where stopping them is no longer possible? And if that point has already been crossed, then nothing you're seeing right now is stability. It's the system continuing without the ability to stop itself. This is the moment most civilizations never understood. Not when collapse begins, but when it becomes unavoidable. Because once that moment is reached, there are no more corrections, no more adjustments, no more second chances. Because once the point of no return is reached, collapse is not a possibility anymore. It's already in motion. So the real question is not if systems will collapse. It's this: have they already started, and we just haven't seen it yet? And if that's true, then what happens next is not theory anymore. It's reality. Because in the next video, you're not going to hear about collapse. You're going to experience it. The first hours, the confusion, the moment everything still looks normal, but nothing works anymore. If you want to understand what really happens, you need to see what comes next. So tell me in the comments, which system do you think has already crossed the point of no return? Because the most interesting answers might end up in the next episode. And the worst part, you're already inside it.